Hi guys, my name is Barry and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about, once again, Halloween H2O, and for good reason, because this is the 25th anniversary year for the movie when it came out. Although the movie did come out around about the 5th of August in the US, and it came out in October in the UK 1998. So we had a few months to wait after you guys in the US and possibly Canada and other countries. Unfortunately for me, I didn't see this movie at the cinema. I saw this movie at home on VHS. That was the first time I saw it. So I had a different viewing experience to a lot of people when it first came out back in 1998. Now, before we get into discussing the film itself, there is a new 25th anniversary 4K steelbook coming out this year, coming out in September. And I've already mentioned, and I've spoken about this on social media, that they used the wrong mask on the front cover for it. It's the KNB mask that they used on this front cover, the back cover, and the inside of the case as well. This just shows that whoever the artist is, it's not their fault, but whoever the artist is hasn't seen Halloween H2O or doesn't care about it, and then they've sent it off to Paramount to get the green light, and Paramount have greenlit this, and that also means that Paramount, the people at Paramount, have either not seen Halloween H2O or also don't care about the movie itself. Now, if you're going to be using a mask for the cover of a 25th anniversary, yes, the movie's got numerous masks in it, but the main mask that they do use is the Stan Winston mask. You don't need to use the KNB mask for any shots, don't need to use the CGI mask for any shots, and you also don't need to use that horrible clay face from The Curse of Michael Myers that we saw at the beginning of H2O on any covers on the steelbook. It has to be the Stan Winston mask. That's the only mask that matters. However, they decided not to do that because they really don't care about it. They don't care that it's the 25th anniversary either. There's no special features or no new special features on the 4K as far as I can see. It's just a bare bones 4K release. And the only reason that they're releasing it this year is because it's the 25th anniversary, and I think people will buy it, and that's it. There is a 4K from Scream Factory, but Paramount have got their fingers in it, and they've decided, let's just release a 25th anniversary. We don't care what's on it. We don't care what it looks like. People will buy it, and they probably will. Now, unfortunately for me, I won't be buying it because it doesn't come with any other features that I've not seen before, and that artwork is absolutely atrocious, and it should be binned before it gets released and redone. But that's by the by, guys. That's the 25th anniversary. Now, I did do my own mock-up for this because I thought it deserves a little bit more of a better treatment, and this is what I came up with compared to what they came up with. So H2O, this is the film in the Halloween franchise that I've probably spoken about the most, even more than Halloween 1978. And it's not because I love it the best, because it's not my favourite Halloween movie, that's obviously 1978, but it is my favourite sequel in the entire franchise. And yes, it could go down to nostalgia, the timing of me watching the movie. I know that people like Dave McRae have said that it's a movie of its time, and if this is the first movie you saw in the franchise, maybe you've got that more nostalgic factor to it, and that holds true in a certain way. It's not the first Halloween movie I saw, and it's not the first Halloween movie that I loved. In fact, it wasn't anywhere near the first one that I watched, because I did watch the first 4, I believe, before Halloween H2O. I watched Halloween 1, 2, 3, and 4 way before H2O. However, I did watch I watched Curse of Michael Myers before I saw H2O as well. The only one I didn't see before H2O in the order is Halloween 5, because it was very hard to get a hold of in the UK. We only had VHS, and there was hardly any places that sold older VHSs by the time I came to collecting VHSs. But H2O was my entry into easy access to a Halloween movie. I used to go to my local Blockbuster Video and Global Video. For those of you who are from the UK, you'll know Global Video. But I used to go into Global and Blockbuster every day when Halloween H2O came out on VHS. And in the UK, it's maybe similar to you guys abroad, that a movie will come out for rental, and then 6 months later, around about 6 months later, it will be available on X rental, maybe 5 to 6 months later. And then 6 months after that, which is a year after it comes out in rental, then you'll be able to purchase it. I think I'm right in that. No, I'm not right in that. Sorry, scrap that. It will come out on VHS 6 months after the cinema. 3 months after that, it will be X Rental, and then 3 months after that, I'll be available to purchase, to own, and not X Rental. But me, I didn't mind. I like the X Rental copies. X Rental copies, for those of you who don't know, are more sturdy than your original copies. X Rental copies are designed to be watched over and over and over again. That's why rental places rent them out to people. So I didn't mind that I had an X Rental copy. But my story is, every day in the lead up to round about the third month of when the movie came out on VHS or on rental, I would go into my local Blockbuster and Global and really annoy them. I would go in and say, is H2O available to buy on X Rental yet? And they'd be like, nope, not available yet. And I'd be like, damn. I'd go away, come back the next day and ask them the exact same thing. The exact same people, they would look at me and go, what is wrong with you? And then I wasn't even young as well. It was around about 1999. So I was 15, not 16 yet. I was around about 15 when I was trying to get an X Rental copy of it. I had already seen the movie. I already rented it with my parents and loved it, but I just wanted to buy it, to own it, so I could watch it every single day of my life. Eventually, the movie did come out in X Rental. I was probably the first person to purchase it in the whole entire of the UK, and I did watch it every day. I watched it maybe twice a day sometimes. I was just in that nostalgic bubble at that moment in time because I had Urban Legend, I Know What You Did Last Summer, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, Scream 2, The Faculty, you name it, The Clown at Midnight, all those type of slasher movies that were coming thick and fast. I had them and I was watching them every day, and Halloween H2O was one of my favourites of those movies at the time. It still is. And I just wanted to watch it every day. It's one of the, for me, I probably know every single line in the entire movie. I probably know every shot that's going to happen before it happens. That's how much I know this movie, and that's how much I love this movie. Now, I will tell you things that I really love about it. I'll tell you things of why I love it, and I'll let you know things that I understand can be a bit of an issue for not just for myself, but for other people as well. With every Halloween movie, you're probably going to compare it to the original. Now, this is the 7th movie in the franchise, and since then, since the first one to this one, we've had ups and downs in the franchise. We've had Michael Myers with terrible masks, massive Michael Myers, small Michael Myers, Myers that walks like a robot, Myers with shoulder pads, you name it, we had it. And when Halloween H2O came out, at the time, and even now, we've got a lot of complaints about how Michael Myers looks, how he walks, and all that. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with it? Like, Chris Durand plays Michael Myers, albeit Chris Durand has already admitted that he didn't even watch the Halloween films in the lead up to this. He was just a stuntman after all. He wasn't Cillian Murphy or Daniel Day-Lewis. He was just a stuntman, played Michael Myers. So he didn't really prepare himself for the role like James Jude Courtney would now. But he was 6'3", I believe, Chris Durand, 6'2", 6'3", and at the time, obviously, you shrink when you're older. Nick Castle was about 5'10", 5'11", so there wasn't that much difference in height and frame to both Nick Castle in 1978 and Chris Durand in 1998. With the walk of Michael Myers as well, I know that people say, oh, he shouldn't be running. Well, he doesn't run. He walks the same speed in H2O as he does in the original movie. The whole tilt up with the setup that Michael Myers does, I'll give Chris Durand his due. He done okay. He done probably better than all the other Michael Myers did in the lead up to Halloween H2O. The mask is probably the biggest issue for people. Now, I don't have an issue with the main mask, the Stan Winston mask, because that was a great mask. It had bigger eye holes, but with the way this movie was shot, it was a Hollywood movie. It had to be lit the way that it was because that's the style that we had back in the late 90s. You couldn't give us a 1978 style Halloween movie in the boom of the slasher phase because nobody would have watched that at the time unless you were a little bit older. So they had to cater for what was available at the time and what people wanted to see at the time. And that's what people wanted to see. Now, seeing his eyes, I've said this lots of times, seeing his eyes, as much as it's not great, I actually like it because I know who Michael Myers is at this point. He's already got a backstory now. He's already got a family member and he's got a motive behind the reasons what he's doing. So he needs to see Laurie Strode. He needs to kill Laurie Strode. And for him to do that and for us to see the impact in his eyes, we need to see his eyes to be able to do that. If we weren't supposed to know who he was still, if we weren't supposed to know why he was after Laurie or what he was doing, then fair enough. We shouldn't see his eyes because that would go back to the original, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. We just don't know who he is or why he's doing it. It makes sense not to show his eyes. Whereas 20 years later, we've got 20 years worth of knowledge of Michael Myers now. I don't care if we see his eyes or not. We know who he is. We know why he's after Laurie. Let's see his eyes. Let's see both their eyes when they look at each other face to face and go, wow, it's been 20 years since I last seen you. I'm going to kill you. If we look at the score, now the score had a bit of an issue. We've got John Ottman that came in to give us a more orchestral score, and then that was scrapped and they had no more time to do anything else, so they had to bring in Marco Beltrami to change it up a bit, as well as add in previous score they'd done for previous movies like Scream and Scream 2, and that's why some people complain that this is like a Scream ripoff because it's the same music. Yes, they didn't do it intentionally, they had to do it for time restraints. However, the John Ottman score to me was fantastic. It was more orchestral. It was very different to the original, but again, they tried to make it the triumphant finale between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. So you don't have the same beats. Now, John Carpenter doesn't have the same beats in the latest trilogy, the latest David Gordon Green trilogy. If he wanted to do it the same, he would just give us what he'd done in 1978. But it's the same with John Ottman. He wanted to give us something different, something more epic than we got in 1978 because times were changing. So 20 years later, you're not going to get the same, especially in the late 90s. We didn't have that nostalgic rush of 70s and 80s synthwave retro music. So it had no place in a Halloween film or any film at the time. So they gave us something that they tried to give us that was a grand epic finale, and some of the score still stayed in there, and I really enjoyed that. If you listen to John Ottman's score online, it's still a really good score. It might not fit in with what your idea is for a Halloween soundtrack, but for me it was different, and it was an epic finale to what should have been the final movie. Now, people are going to compare this movie to Dawson's Creek and other teeny bopper slasher movies of the late 90s, and so they should, because believe it or not, this movie came out in 1998. It is a product of its time. It did come out in 1998. Why try to be something that you're not? You are a movie of the late 90s. You've got that era. Movies like Halloween in 1978 had a similar style to other movies back then. The actors in the films, they were all in the same kind of bubble, and it's the same with Halloween from 1998, H20. You had Josh Hartnett, Michelle Williams, you had Adam Bird, is it Adam Lynn Bird? Jodi-Lynn, Keith, LL Cool J. You had all these up-and-coming actors that, let's face it, Halloween H20 probably holds some of the greatest actors in any of the Halloween franchise. Even today, you've got Josh Hartnett, who's just been in Oppenheimer. So the actors, the choice of casting in this film, as much as you might look at it and go, oh, they're just teeny boppers. Well, of course, that was the target audience at the time. It's a teen slasher movie. It's the same with Halloween 1978. Jamie Lee Curtis, PJ Souls, all of them were probably catering to the teenage audiences at the time. And it's the same with Halloween H20. Why criticise H20's casting if you're not going to criticise 1978's casting? I think the reason is, it depends what age you are. If you were young enough in 1978 to see what the target audience was, you will understand the target audience for 1998. Now, I'm young enough to know the target audience for H20, so I accept the target audience for Halloween 2018. That's got newer up-and-coming actors like Dylan Arnold. They cater for the teen audience. I'm okay with that because that's what they want to do. They're trying to put bums on seats for not just the teenage audience, but the adults, which is why you bring back Jamie Lee Curtis. So the casting for H20, for me, was absolutely on point. Now, I've said this before as well, it's one of the only movies in the franchise that's not set in Haddonfield, and you might be thinking, why would you not set it in Haddonfield? Well, they're trying to be realistic, and they are being realistic. Why would Laurie Strode stay in Haddonfield after what happened? We're assuming Michael Myers disappeared after the events of Halloween 2, because this is a sequel to Halloween 2. So he disappeared. Why would Laurie Strode stay in the town that she's staying in and keep her same name? She would move halfway across the country, and that's exactly what she does. Not only does she move to California, but she changed her name as well. Everyone would do the same. Well, I say everyone, most people would do the same. So it's more realistic. Yes, it might take away certain things and certain aspects about the film. People say that it doesn't feel like a Halloween movie. I can see where they're coming from with that. But at the same time, they've got some of the leaves there. There's some people dressed up. Yes, it's probably the less Halloween-y feel to some people, but to me, because I watched this movie on Halloween and I watched it wearing Halloween costumes and people are out trick-or-treating, it still reminds me of Halloween. And of course, it's called Halloween. It's got Michael Myers. To me, that's enough. I don't mind if it's not set in Haddonfield. But I can also see where people are coming from. It probably doesn't feel as Halloween-y as some of the other Halloween sequels, like Halloween 4, for example. That probably feels like the most Halloween-themed Halloween movie. So yes, there are negatives to this movie. And I think the biggest negative, but it's not a negative to me, is it doesn't feel so Halloween-y to people and it's not set in Haddonfield. But I wouldn't have set it in Haddonfield myself because of what was at stake and the progression of Laurie Strode after 20 years. Looking back on H2O after 25 years, no, it's not a perfect movie, but in the Halloween franchise, it's near perfect as a sequel itself, and it's got a perfect ending to the franchise as well. So if I have to look at the negatives in this film, that I don't have that many negatives, to be honest. Negatives would be things that they couldn't really help, and that was, for example, the masks. Just have one mask in the movie and that would have helped, because people just moan about that all the time. It doesn't bother me as much, but if I had to give you negatives, then it's the masks. Just give us that one Stan Winston mask and maybe we would have less people moaning about it. And also the Halloween vibe. To me, it's still a Halloween vibe, but it feels the least Halloween vibe out of them all. So that's my only two negatives for this film. It's a short movie. Minus the credits is about 79, 80 minutes long. It's very fast paced as well. Not a lot of kills in it, not a lot of gore, and that's a good thing. And I know that people have a problem with that as well. People moan about the body count and moan about the gore, but they love Halloween 1978. Why? There's less gore in that and less bodies to kill in that one as well. So I think people really need to sit back and just watch it and go, do you know what? These are the problems I've got with H2O. But then when you watch all the other Halloween movies, including Halloween 1, you could point yourself and go, oh, do you know what? The problems I have with H2O are present in most of the Halloween films, if not all of the Halloween films. So there are negatives to look at. Some of my negatives for H2O have turned into positives over the years, and hopefully that's the same with you guys as well. And I urge you, it's been 25 years. If you haven't seen it in 25 years, or if you haven't seen it at all, then give it a rewatch or a watch. Let me know what you think of it, guys. Leave your comments down below, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
I'll be right back.
What are you waiting for, huh?
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Ever played Skin the Cat?